Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans drift in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets PreGame Show right here on the channel and on X. And we are talking about another Mets victory against the Philadelphia Phillies, as that is 9 straight at Citi Field. And my, oh my, Mets fans, the Phillies, the Mets are in the Phillies' heads. There is no doubt about it. The first game with Bryson Stott or Alec Boehm about the boom mic in center field. Then it was yesterday with Luzardo basically, acting like a baby on the mound, like he was the only one not getting strikes, even though the Mets were getting terrible calls as well. They are acting like a bunch of babies. And as I said, and I continue to say it, as I really got into it with a couple of Philly fans yesterday, when I said what I said, and I told you they were going to comment on certain parts of videos, of course, they are not as good as everybody portrays them to be. It's just a fact. It's just a fact. Somebody said, I gotta show this, the bone mic. That's great. This is awesome. I love it. They are a team that mentally have issues when they play the Mets. It's just amazing what they do. I don't even know what to say with it, but you know what? The Mets are finally playing like a team. And I'm still not saying that, the Mets are going to win the division, right? Again, they win today, division back on. Like I said that, they got to sweep the Phillies to have the division even within a conversation, in my opinion, right? You lose today, you only gain basically one game. It just feels like it's like, damn, you missed a golden opportunity. You can't have happened against the Braves when you were going into a Sunday game to sweep and you failed to do so. There's a situation where you can't let up. They got Taijuan Walker on the mound. You had 2 really good pitchers on the mound for the Phillies in Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo, who's been pretty good for the Phillies this year. And the Mets struggled against lefties all season, and you found a way to win those ball games by any means necessary. You cannot let Taijuan Walker dominate this game. He's pitched well since he got put back into this rotation. He's pitched better. The Mets need to pounce on him. Step on his throat. There is no reason why this guy should get out of the 4th inning. You got to kill this team. You got Nolan McLean, who's pitched really well in his first 2 starts. And by no means, and I say he's going to pitch a great game. I don't know. Right? But, he's not afraid of the moment as he's pitching in the second time at Citi Field. The place is going to be jumping. It's a Wednesday night. School is already starting. And everybody's just, the Citi Field was nuts yesterday. And it's going to be even more crazier today. And the fact that the New York Mets trailed yesterday and it wasn't looking good, and it was 2-0 in the top of the 5th, right away they bounced back with a 5 spot in the bottom of the 5th, and the Mets were rolling from there. Now, Unfortunately for the Mets, they got an 8th inning problem. And that was not supposed to be the case after the trade deadline. That was supposed to be solidified. That should have been 7, 8, and 9 should have not even been a topic of conversation. And the biggest problem right now is Ryan Helsley. We all know that. You can't trust him at all. Excuse me. He can't get his slider over. When he doesn't get his slider over, I don't care if you throw 110 miles an hour. If a major league batter is looking for that pitch and knows you can't throw a slider for a strike, they're looking for that fastball. And Harrison Bader turned on a 100 miles an hour fastball yesterday and parked it down the left field line and tied the ball game. That was a situation where I'm not blaming Mendoza because, again, they don't pitch Brooks Raley back-to-back days. So he probably wasn't available. And when he's one of your better lefties in the bullpen, you can't pitch him back-to-back days when you're still worried. He's still fighting. He's still coming back from that injury, and you got to be careful with that. And I know you got to win ball games, but there's other guys that should be doing the job. You traded for Ryan Helsley to be the 8th inning guy. There shouldn't be no conversation of who should be the 8th inning guy, but there is a conversation because Ryan Helsley sucks right now. I don't know if he's tipping his pitches. It looked like the game before he kind of figured something out, and Mendoza felt that way as well because I don't think he would have put him in the 8th inning if he didn't feel yesterday or the day before yesterday's game that he looked a little bit better. And I guess Mendoza was hoping that he can actually, come back the next day and, build off of that, and he did it. So I don't know what the Mets are going to do. You're gonna have to put him in mop-up duty. You're gonna have to put him in a situation where you might have to throw him in the 5th inning if the starter doesn't go more than 5 minutes. You might have to throw him in the 5th or 6th inning and hope he figures it out. Because if not, the Mets have a huge problem on their hands. I don't know what you do with him. I just don't. Like, you can't keep on pitching Rogers. Gregory Soto has hit a bump in the road as he was so good for the first month. And his last 2 outings, he gave up multiple runs. Like, he's been having problems. So Gregory Soto is somewhat of an issue. Even though he limited the damage, he's been, snapping a little bit. And he's been breaking a little bit. And again, I don't think he was going to be perfect forever. So we have to understand that he's been that good. But after Rogers, Raley will be available today. You're hoping Diaz should be available today. Like, I honestly don't care. Everybody in this bullpen needs to be available today, right? Diaz needs to be available tonight. We'll worry about the Marlins series when we get to the Marlins series. You got to, if you want a chance to win this division, if you want a chance for the New York Mets to have another way to get into the playoffs, because just because you got a 3.5 game lead in the third wild card, you don't want that as your only option. You want the division in play when you face the Phillies in the second week of September. That is what you want if you're a New York Mets fan. You want to have that opportunity to be in control of what you can take care of. If you're within 3-4 games, by the time you get to the Philly series, when you play that 4-game series, and you get to them, and you're in that series and you're within that amount of games, you have a chance. And as I said, you win today, that is what, 7-2 against the Phillies? You win the season series. So you win the season series. That is huge. That means you get an actual game against them, because if you tie them, because again, here's the other thing right here. If you win today, you sweep them, you win 7 out of 2. Of 7, excuse me. You win 7 out of 9 so far. You got the tiebreaker. So if you win today, it's not a 4-game lead, it's a 3-game lead. I want everybody to understand that. Because there's too many people like, if you win today, you're still 4 games out. You got a lot of games. You got 29 games to go. A lot can happen. Absolutely. But no matter what, they have to be a game better than you in the standings to win the division. That is a huge situation because all you need to do is be within striking distance when you face them and even build up on that lead. And maybe you get in that lead where you might have to take control over that division and they have to pass you again. That is something you and every Met fan should be thinking about tonight. The New York Mets players, you see that confidence coming out with guys like Brandon Nimmo all of a sudden, right? Demanding shit again from Brett Beatty's going to be here a long time. You better remember that kid. You better, get used to him. Like what? All the things you could have said after the game after your walk-off hit. You're talking about Brett Beatty, and that was a great at bat by Brett Beatty. How he just fought that ball off and got on base. But you see the confidence spilling. You see the players believing, which is something that we really haven't seen all year. Even when we had 2 7-game winning streaks this year, it never felt like they were on the same page with this team together. And it finally feels like they are, right? The extra hustling, right? Getting into rundowns that usually a lot of the times this year, you'll see guys just stand there and let the tag apply. Like they're making the Phillies make the extra throw, the perfect throw, the perfect play. How many times I said all year, put the ball in play or try to make something happen to allow the defense to make a mistake. The Phillies defense isn't as good as it was last year. The Phillies defense was better last year than it is this year. They're a high strikeout team. They're a high swing rate team. This is a team that relies on Kyle Schwarber to dominate games. If Kyle Schwarber doesn't dominate games, they don't win. And so far, so good for the New York Mets keeping Schwarber in the ballpark. Because you see what happens when you keep Schwarber in the ballpark. The Phillies have to find an alternative route to win some games. And you know what? Harper hasn't been the same player. And, he had a ton of injuries over the last couple of years. But I think first base is probably the worst scenario for him. But with his arm, he can't play right field. I think that's something that he thinks about. And look, Harper's still a really good player. But I feel like he was more of a threat as a national as he was a Philly, as he is a Philly right now. Now, again, he's still dangerous, right? He can turn on pitches still. He can still knock him over the wall. Nobody's saying that. But you see what happens when you control Schwarber in this lineup. They did it for the most part in the playoffs, right? He did hit, a couple of solo home runs in the playoff series. He didn't do major damage. And I think that was a big reason why the New York Mets won in the NLDS last year. And I think this is the reason why the New York Mets are dominating the season series at this point. They controlled Schwarber for the most part. I mean, he's been their best player. And when you control your best player, you got to find other alternatives. And look, the Phillies did score 5 wins yesterday, right? They got a big home run by Harrison Bader. So you understand that, hey, things can happen here where it's like, all right, we shouldn't be losing this game. And I honestly don't know what Mendoza can do, right? You don't have Reed Garrett right now. You can't trust Ryan Helsley, at least, in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. Gregory Soto has kind of again, hit a bump. So, you'll have Raley. Who else would you probably have? I mean, you're going to have to pitch Stanek. I know nobody wants to see Stanek, but you can't leave him out there and never pitch him. You can't keep on going to Rogers. You can't keep on going to the same guys again and pitch him every day. You got to, at some point, use Stanek. Because, again, Brandon Sproat's not here. He's not here yet. So, we don't know how he's going to perform in the bullpen. I don't know why the Mets would move Sproat to the bullpen, where I would have put Sproat into this rotation and put Clay Holmes in the bullpen, where he's successful. That is probably the best route than putting a kid who's never been in the bullpen before and trying him out. And I'm sorry, I got a crazy sinuses and I don't know what the hell's going on with me today, but I keep on, it's all congested today, guys. I apologize for that. I'm sounding a little weird right now. I apologize. Let me just look at the comments really quick. Yeah, Ray, you do hear it, right? Okay, I thought I was. I'm assuming everybody's like, what's wrong with Rob? Yeah, I'm a little under the weather, but that's all right. These summer colds suck. I'm not gonna lie. So, and I agree with you guys. That I see it in the comment. Like, Sproat needs to be in the rotation. I don't understand why they did that. I understand they're worried about Sproat's innings, and he might be the third best guy out of Tong and McLean. But the third best guy is probably one of the better guys in our rotation compared to what Senga has done and Manaya has done. And Clay Holmes has been fine, but when you need somebody also as a veteran to go deep in this rotation, you can't rely on Nolan McLean and Jonah Tong to go deep in the games down. Like, you're going to trust those guys and put all that pressure on them to go deep into games and pitch well. It's like, come on, man. Like, let one of these, elder statesmen in this rotation do that job. Because we know Senga can't do it. We know Manaya can't do it. Clay Holmes finally did it, but can he repeat that on regular rest? That's going to be very interesting to see when he pitches in the Marlins series. So I just don't know. I honestly don't know what that plan is. I'd rather just take a chance with Sproat in the rotation and put Holmes in the bullpen. I don't care what you promised him. You're trying to win ball games here. And I think Clay Holmes would understand that. I think Clay Holmes would understand it. Look, he's done probably as good as I could expect for a guy coming out of the bullpen and hasn't started since he was in Pittsburgh when he first came into the league. I'm not mad at Clay Holmes. Like, he is what he is. But when you need length, when you need better starting pitching, Clay Holmes shouldn't be pitching every fifth day or sixth day right now for the New York Mets. You need, especially with Helsley being the problem, you need Clay Holmes in that bullpen. We know how good he can be late in games when he's not a closer. He was excellent for the Yankees in the 7th and 8th inning last year down the stretch and into the playoffs. He was one of their best relievers along with Luke Weaver. So I don't know why they don't do that. Like, I just don't understand. I don't expect him to do what he did his last start and get into the 7th inning. I just don't expect that again. And that's where I kind of am a little upset with Sproat going to the bullpen in the minors because I don't understand that logic at all. You're putting a kid who's pitched extremely well, not better than McLean, not better than Tong, but still pretty good. He finally started to figure out AAA, and his last 8 starts were really damn good. If you were that worried about his innings, then why even have a conversation about bringing him up? Like, putting him in the bullpen in a situation he's not comfortable in, saving innings is not going to overall help this team if he's not going to do well in the bullpen. Now, he still might. And we don't know that yet until we see it. But why are we going to trust a kid that is used to starting? He pitched over 100 innings as a starter this year, and now you're going to throw him in basically the end of the season for the minors as a bullpen arm. If you were going to do that from the jump, and this is why I talk about the indecisiveness, the lack of plan when it came to these young kids. These kids weren't supposed to be up. If everything was working the way it's supposed to, these kids would have continued to develop even more. And I don't think McLean needs more development or Tong, but it wouldn't hurt to have him the whole year in the minors and just keep on dominating and have him ready for spring training. It was obvious the Mets didn't plan for this. David Stearns didn't plan for this. The same thing with Brandon Sproat. They didn't plan to put him in the bullpen, because if they planned on doing that the whole time, you would have done it a couple of weeks ago when your bullpen still needed extra arms. So the problem wasn't what they did with these kids. That's not the problem. The problem is waiting too long to do so. Not having that plan in place, because I don't even think that was their B plan. I think their B plan was what they did at the deadline. Hope the bullpen is, fixed with the additions of Rogers, Soto, and Helsley, and you end up having, similar problems, especially with Ree Garrett out now. You might have to throw Stanek today in a big situation, and that's not fun for anybody. You hope he figures it out, but I mean, can you expect that? And excuse me 1 second, guys. I'm sorry. So that is something where we have to figure out, what are they trying to do? Because what if the next couple of starts for Brandon Sproat out of the bullpen is not very good? What are you going to transition him back to a starter? Like, they always talk about keeping these guys healthy, worrying about innings and pitch count and all that stuff. And what if he doesn't pitch well in the bullpen for the next 3 or 4 starts? You're just going to throw him in the Mets bullpen and have possibly the same issue you've been having? Doesn't make sense. I'd rather have a guy who's actually been in the bullpen. And by no means saying that if Clay Holmes stays in the bullpen the rest of the regular season, doesn't mean he can't get a start in the postseason. You can piggyback Brandon Sproat and Clay Holmes together in a game. You could do that. I have no problem with that. But it's about the team. It's not about hurting anybody's feelings or a demotion for Clay Holmes. It is, we need you in this bullpen. There's not a lot of guys we can trust in this bullpen. It is Diaz, it is Rogers, and Raley right now. Soto was in that circle of trust. He's kind of like hanging on by a thread in that circle of trust. So I don't know. And it's frustrating because the Mets offense, as you've seen, basically over the last 3 weeks, almost a month, the Mets have been scoring over 7 runs a game. And they're just now starting to play better. And you don't want the bullpen to start to derail that. Because the starting pitching, for the most part, with Peterson, with McLean, and Tong on Friday, it's starting to come within its own a little bit. Obviously, Minaya and Senga are a problem. But when hopefully you're going to have Tong pitch at least good enough where you can say, all right, now we have 3 starters that we know every 5th or 6th day we can count on them. The Mets haven't had that all season. There was maybe 2 guys all season, probably 1 with David Peterson, but let's just say 2 guys that you can go out there every 5th day and say, okay, I trust that he can give us a good start. Like, that was all season that we dealt with, and that's a problem. If you can have 3 guys that you can count on giving you a quality start, if not better, and you feel confident going into that game, you feel a lot better about this team, especially the team that's scoring runs right now and is leading the league, baseball, in runs scored per game over the last 3.5 weeks. And before today's game, it was 7.2 runs per game. Now it's probably like 7.3, 7.4 runs per game. Excuse me. So you don't want the bullpen to derail what the Mets are doing here. You can't have Nolan McLean's start end up being a disaster because the bullpen did not do their job. What you're hoping, and again, this is going to be a very desperate Phillies team here. You know they're going to try to take that extra base. You know they're going to, and they already got a high swing rate. You know they're going to be swinging for the fences. You know they're going to try to do something extra in the game, and you can take full advantage of them pressing a little bit and doing too much. Hopefully Nolan McLean, who, is a breaking ball off-speed type of guy and loves to spin that ball, and he has 15, 16 strikeouts over the course of 2 starts. He has no problem throwing those off-speed breaking balls and all that and spin that ball. This is a high swing rate team. This is an opportunity for Nolan McLean to really mess up the Phillies here. And we hope that he does that. But again, we know the Phillies are going to come out gangbusters. They know winning this game probably for the most part solidifies their division. Their division right now. Obviously, it's not over. You'd be down 6 games with 29 to go, and a lot can happen in that stretch. But you rather just deal with having an opportunity to win this division. And the Phillies know that. All they had to do was take 1 game in this series, and they kind of like settled everything down. Especially, it always sucks going into a series, and we did it with the Braves, where you win the first 2 games, have an opportunity to sweep, and you don't. It feels worse. Like, just because you won 2 out of 3, it sounds good, right? It feels like the momentum's on your side because you took 2 out of 3. But 2 out of 3, if you win the first game and the last game of the series, for some reason it feels better. But when you win the first 2 and then you lose the last game, it has a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. And that is where you don't want that to happen again. We felt that way against the Braves, and we need to finish the job against the Phillies. Because you are facing a Marlins team that was red hot a couple of weeks ago, and everybody thought, the Marlins are looking pretty good. But they kind of backtracked a little bit, and they haven't been playing as well as they were a couple of weeks ago. And we know they got pretty good pitching. And we know the Marlins have had the Mets number for years, especially in September. And you can't have a situation as well as you do sweep the Phillies. And you look like you're running all cylinders. You're playing well. And then you play down to your competition, which the Mets love to do at times like this. And they can't do that. They can't take their foot off the pedal. And you hope they don't do that. But we've seen it before. Until they prove it, just like they slayed that dragon in Atlanta last year. Until they do it, I can't believe it. They got to take advantage of a team in the Marlins that is not playing extremely well right now, as they were a couple of weeks ago. You got to do that. I think this game is so important. This is an important game for Nolan McLean, because just because he pitched well in the first 2 starts, you can't let the Phillies beat him up today. I'm not saying pitch lights out, but get into the 6th inning, 2 runs or less, and I'll be extremely happy. You can't let them put a 4 or 5 spot on you. Even if you do pitch 6 innings, you can't put a 4 or 5 spot on you, because, again, it's hard enough to come back in ball games. But the consistently extra offense to do it day after day after day, they're going to come up short at times. And they did it in the Braves series on that Sunday. You can't have the offense always come back in games. Now, it would be nice, McLean has a quick first inning, Mets come out there and jump on Taijuan Walker. And again, Taijuan Walker, you got to beat him up. He's pitched better since coming back in the rotation, but he's not the Mets Taijuan Walker. He is the Phillies Taijuan Walker that has not been good since they signed him a couple of years ago. You got to take full advantage of winning games with Christopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo on the mound for the Phillies, and with the Mets having issues all season hitting against lefties, and they won those both games. You got a righty on the mound who's still got decent stuff, but we got to make sure he remembers you are the Phillies Taijuan Walker. You are a guy who is, in that later stages, for the most part, of his career. And you got to make him remember that. Like, you are not better than what you were when you were with us. Let him remember that he was a problem for the Phillies, where he was in the bullpen because he was so bad in that rotation. That's what you want for the New York Mets. You want him to make Taijuan Walker look clueless on the mound. You can't have Taijuan Walker beat you today. You can't. And Nolan McLean, same thing. You can't let the Phillies get to you. 6 innings, 2 runs. You proved to me you can do that. Don't disappoint us. Again, we're not throwing Nolan McLean to the wolves here if he doesn't pitch well. But it would be very frustrating knowing that, all right, he pitched well against the Braves. He pitched well against Seattle. Seattle was a red-hot hitting offensive team coming in against the Mets. And then pitching in Atlanta the way he did, which, again, Atlanta's still got a decent offense, but they're not the same team as they were last year or the year before. Don't come out today where, for the most part, the Mets pitching has somewhat held the Phillies somewhat stagnant offensively, and let them wake up. Because, again, they need to take this game. They're going to be a desperate team today, and they're going to do more than what they probably want to do, like taking an extra base, maybe swinging for more. They're probably going to swing for the fences more. And when it gets later and later into a game, and if the game is tied or the Mets are winning, you're going to see mistakes because they're going to be trying too hard. The pressure is all on the Philadelphia Phillies. Let's remember that. The Phillies have the pressure. They got the pressure of losing to the Mets in the NLDS last year. Everybody's talking about, including their post-game guys, are talking about the Mets in the heads of the Philadelphia Phillies. Like, that is the talk of Philadelphia sports radio right now. That is all they're talking about. They can't beat the Mets at Citi Field. They're hearing that noise. They're hearing the Mets beat them in the NLDS. They're hearing that was 3 years ago in the World Series. And then it was the NLCS and the embarrassment against the Diamondbacks. Then it was last year with the embarrassment of the New York Mets, where the Philadelphia Phillies were highly favored in that series, and the Mets embarrassed them. That is what they're hearing. They're going to be on edge. They're going to try to take the extra base. They're going to be swinging for the fences, and they're going to be trying to do too much because they know how important this game is. This game here for them is probably the division where they don't have to worry about it. Going back 6 games, leaving Citi Field, and you just only lose 1 game is going to be huge for them. It's going to be very hard for the New York Mets to get back into that race unless they have an outstanding 29 games and the Phillies kind of fold. And that is far and few between. That's hard to do. But if you win today, you win the season series, you have the tiebreaker, and technically you're 4 games out record-wise, but ultimately it's still an extra game. Because if you tie them and you have the season series, you have the tiebreaker. So if you win today and you're the New York Mets, you're not 4 games out of the division. You're only 3 because of the tiebreaker. That is very, very important, Mets fans. And that's what the New York Mets got to do today. They got to understand how important this is for the New York Mets. The Phillies know it's important. They know this. They hear it. Trust me. I don't want the Mets to get a high head here. They don't deserve much credit for the way they played this year. This should have not been a topic of conversation. We should have been playing. We should have been right there with the Phillies in this division. Not 7 games out when this series started. They've played so bad that they have to play so well just to get back in this race and have Met fans starting to believe again. Because, I'm sorry, winning 3 series in a row is not exciting. 3 out of the last 4 series in a row is better, but it's going to feel not the same if you lose today. You win another series, you keep your pace for the most part in the wild card where you are right now. The Reds seem like they're kind of dwindling away a little bit. You're kind of comfortable in this wild card spot right now. But you know what? Since the Philly series, you gained 2 games on the second wild card. That's up in the air. That's also a possibility now as well, as the Padres are kind of like being a little shaky over the last week or so. They're not playing as well. So the second wild card could be an option as well. And, again, nobody really wants to play certain teams, right? If the Mets are the second wild card, they'll be playing the Cubs at the moment. If they're the third wild card, they'll be playing the Phillies in the wild card series. And I want Met fans to understand something here. If the season ended today, the Mets would be facing the Phillies in the postseason. Now, everybody would be like, hey, we got their number. We've played them extremely well. It won't be at Citi Field. It will be at Citizens Bank. So that's a little bit of a point on their side. But I want to make sure everybody understands this. Go back to 2015 when the Cubs basically dragged us all season. They beat the hell out of us at home and on the road. The Cubs did in 2015. The Mets didn't win a ball game against the Chicago Cubs during the season. And when the Mets got to the playoffs, they embarrassed them in the NLCS and swept them. I know that's a long time ago now. That's 10 years ago. But don't take the season series for granted. It doesn't mean nothing. Because it takes one hit, one play to turn the fortune to them. So never think you have their hand. They have the upper hand. You have the upper hand because of the way you play them in a series. We all know that means nothing. We all know that. The Phillies, for the most part, were going into that series last year very confident. And I think they kind of got a high head, to be honest with you. And I think they thought just walking in that they were going to beat the Mets because they were such a high favorite. Nobody was thinking about the Mets shocking the world and beating them the way they did. Now, in a short series, you can pull out game 5. You can figure it out. But beating them in 4 was an embarrassment for them. So I want everybody to understand this. The season series means nothing in the playoffs. We've learned that with the New York Mets in 2015 against the Cubs, where they beat us up during the season and we dominated them in the playoffs. But that's still a month and a half away. So we got a month away before the playoffs start. The Mets still got to make the playoffs. We're in a good spot right now, being up 3.5, but still a long way to go here. Tonight is the night where the New York Mets got to dominate. They got to jump all over Taijuan Walker. Let's just hope that Nolan McLean has a quick first inning. They got to as soon as you put runs on the board early, you know the Phillies are going to be antsy. You know they're going to put pressure on themselves. They're going to try to do too much. And that is where you got them. When they have a high swing rate and they're a team that doesn't play great defense and the pressure is on, they're about to get swept by the New York Mets, where they basically thought they had this division in hand. That is a whole different mindset when you're on the verge of getting swept by the New York Mets. And now they won the season series. They got the tiebreaker. And that 4-game lead is technically a 3-game lead because of the tiebreaker. It is a whole new ball game starting Thursday if the New York Mets win tonight. And Nolan McLean's on the mound. There's probably not many guys you want on the mound today. And again, it's only his 3rd start. So again, there's a lot of expectation because of the way he pitched his last 2 starts. So it's going to be a packed Citi Field. It's going to be a vibrant Citi Field. It's going to be a loud Citi Field. You're going to see the fake boom mics all over the stands. You're going to see, a lot of booing of the Phillies. You're going to see a lot of loud chants. It's going to be crazy at Citi Field. Times like this, I wish I was back in New York because I'd definitely be at this game today. I probably would have been at all 3 games, but I definitely would have been at this game today going crazy because these are the games we live for. We, as fans, became fans and remain fans because of games like this. That you have a packed house at the time when I was young at Shea Stadium. Now at Citi Field. You love going to these games because you're waiting in line, you're going through security, you get into Citi Field, you get into the rotunda, going up the escalator, right? You're starting to feel it a little bit. Yeah, you see that lineup at the top of the escalator. You get excited because this is a big game. You can feel the energy outside the stadium. People walking around everywhere trying to get into the ballpark. You get into the ballpark. You got to get your food, your drink, whatever you got to get. You got to, go into the team shop, waste more money on expensive jerseys and shirts and all that crazy caps and all that crazy stuff. But when you sit in your seat, the energy is there. And those are what you live for as fans, especially Met fans who don't get this opportunity enough. We embrace it more than a lot of fan bases. Right? The Phillies have been there, done that. The Yankees been there, done that. The Met fans don't get this enough. And we embrace it to the point where we fall for it every time. We just fall into that hole where it's like, oh my God, this is what I love. I love the craziness of the fans. I love big games in late August into September. That is what we live for. And it's happening tonight. They've had great crowds the last 2 nights. It's going to be even bigger tonight, especially the Mets going on for the sweep of the Philadelphia Phillies and getting back in this division, along with staying pace of being ahead in this wild card is a huge deal. With the lineup today, guys, we got Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos, McNeil, Marte, Beatty, Senga. Talk about a 1 through 8. Look at 6 through 8. McNeil, Marte, Beatty. This is a deep lineup. Everybody's hitting. Everybody. This is not an easy lineup to get through if you're Taijuan Walker. This is beautiful, man, with the boom. And Jake, you know what? They might not win the division. And by no means am I saying that. I haven't brought that up that the Mets are going to win the division. Never said that. But it puts doubt in the Phillies' head, right? This series, if they get swept, might just make them spiral out of control a little bit more. And the Mets got a 4-game series at home against the Marlins. By the end of the weekend, the Mets can be within a game or so. And I believe, I said this from the beginning, you win tonight, you got the tiebreaker. So no matter what, the Phillies have to be 1 game better than us at the end of the season. And we still got 4 games against them in the second week of September. That is and again, and nobody beats, I agree. The Mets have the hardest schedule in September, I agree, but they have the hardest schedule in the second half as well. You know, they won 2 out of 3 against Seattle, who was red hot coming in. They lost to the Nationals, but they came back and won 2 out of 3 against the Phillies. They already won, against the Braves. They already won this series against the Phillies. So they just won 3 out of the last 4 series, which is something they have not done in a couple of months, since June, early June. So I am not saying the Mets are going to win the division, but it makes it more of a possibility if you win today because you also got the tiebreaker. You're within 4 games of the division. It's technically 3 because of the tiebreaker, and you got 4 games against the Phillies. And coming out of this series, you're facing the Marlins for 4, who have not played well since were playing like crazy the last couple of weeks. They took a step back a little bit. So they're not playing as well as they were a couple of weeks ago. We know the Marlins and the Mets in September, what that can do to the Mets. But you hope this Philly series, if you win today, catapult you a little bit and kind of give you that confidence that I think this team needs that they haven't really had all season. Even when they were 20 games over 500, there was still something off about this team. It didn't feel like they were running on all cylinders. The pitching wasn't aligned with the lineup. It was either the pitching dominating and winning your games or the lineup dominating and winning your games. They never done this together. Over the last couple of series, you got better pitching, not great pitching, but better pitching with the lineup finally waking up and scoring over 7 runs per game over the last 3 weeks, almost a month. For the first time this year, it feels like the starting pitching and the lineup are aligned. Now, the bullpen is a different story. We got to. There's still problems in this bullpen, unfortunately. But there isn't a lot of guys available today. Like I wouldn't be shocked if you see Stanek today. I know that's not going to excite everybody, but with Reed Garrett being out, with Helsley being a disaster, with Tyler Rogers, who might be available tonight, but again, he pitches every freaking day. I know he's a rubber arm, but you got to be careful. You don't want to get him hurt, and you don't want to overuse him because he's been solid for us. With Gregory Soto kind of hitting a bump in the road. You got Raleigh tonight. You probably have Diaz. You need Nolan McLean to go 6 innings at least. It would be great if he can go 7. That kind of solves a lot of the problems because then Brooks Raley can pitch the 8th, and then you'll have Diaz for the 9th. But we all know having a plan going into the game never always works out the way you planned it. You know, what if Nolan McLean's go 6 innings, which would be fine. I take that. But you still got 9 outs to navigate. You still got 3 more innings to navigate. Where do you go? You can't use Helsley. Soto's been using back-to-back games, and he struggled. Raley's available. You know, could you use, one of the guys that are kind of like going back and forth to the minors and majors? Can you count Castillo, who's been good? Do you trust him in the 7th inning? So again, he's another lefty as well, and that's nice to have in this series when you got Schwarber and Harper, in that lineup. But that's probably who you have. You probably have 100%. You probably have Castillo, Raleigh, and Diaz for sure. I don't know where you go after that. So we're all hoping that Nolan McLean can get to the 6th inning, finish the 6th inning, get through 6 innings. If he does that, there's probably a straight line for now, depending on where the lineup is, you might have to flip-flop Raleigh and Castillo. In the 7th inning, let's say that you got Harper coming up and Schwarber coming up. I'd rather go to Raleigh in the 7th to get those guys out, and in the 8th inning, go to Castillo, because it would be, obviously not the best hitters in their lineup. Good hitters, but not the best hitters. You might have to do it that way as well. Brazaban, I don't think so. I know he's another one that has a rubber arm, but I don't trust him either. He's too wild right now. He might be available. Like I said, I think you'll see Brazaban if McLean will get past the 5th inning. I think if he goes 5 innings, you're probably going to have to see Brazaban. But we also got to understand that we might actually see Stanek in that spot as well. So we got to see what the Mets' plan is. And I think that's the plan. I think we all agree that Castillo, Raleigh, and Diaz is probably the plan tonight if McLean goes 6. But if he goes less, if he goes 5, that's another 3 outs you have to get with the bullpen. And that's going to probably lead to a Brazaban or a Stanek in the 6th inning. And then you can work out your plan 7, 8, and 9 if one of those guys in the 6th get the job done. Because if they struggle, you got to go to your better guys that you have left. And that is where the Mets have to really figure it out at that point. But obviously, the plan tonight is probably for McLean to go 6. If he goes 7, that's great. That would be awesome. That would be best case scenario for Nolan McLean, go 7. If he can go 7, you got it set up for Raleigh and Diaz in the 8th and 9th. But again, we all know how plans work. Plans sometimes don't happen or don't go according to plan in a game. And that is where you got to figure out things. And this is where you're going to see guys, and we know what's going to happen. If McLean doesn't go more than 5 innings, you're going to have to go into the 6th inning with either a Brazaban or a Stanek, most likely Stanek. If Stanek doesn't pitch well, everybody's going to blame Mendoza. Why would you bring Stanek in? Why didn't you bring this guy in or that guy in? Because if you bring in Raleigh, and this is what we're going to talk about, if you bring in Castillo in the 6th inning, who's been better than Stanek, and you probably need the 2 lefties to navigate later in the game with the lefties in the Phillies lineup, if you use a Castillo or a Raleigh in the 6th inning, that means Stanek's going to pitch either the 7th or the 8th. And nobody wants to do that. At least in the 6th inning with Stanek, you still got a couple of innings to navigate your offense if Stanek gives up runs to have the game tied or have the Phillies take the lead. You got a couple of innings to go here. You don't have much time if Stanek's got to pitch the 8th inning because you use Raleigh in the 6th instead of the 8th. And you use Castillo in the 7th instead of probably the 6th or the 7th, in that situation, it's a problem. You don't want to use Stanek from the 7th inning on at any moment. Now, if you go into extra innings, it is what it is, right? You have no choice. If you already use Raleigh and Castillo and Diaz and you go into extra innings, obviously Stanek has to be used. You don't have much guys to go to. You probably have to use Helsley, to be honest with you. Like, you have to. You might have to even go to Brazaban again, depending on where we are in the game. And Dolo, absolutely. Mendy should be playing a hot hand. Look at the lineup tonight. There's not one guy not hitting in the lineup. Now, Senga hasn't played every day, but, you got to give Terens a break. He just came back from that hand contusion, so you got to be careful with him, right? He's been playing pretty well, but you got to be careful with him. So Senga is going to be playing today. Brazaban was optioned to AAA. I didn't see that. So let me just check 1 second, guys, because I haven't seen that. Again, I've been live for almost an hour now. I know they made a roster move, but I didn't see Brazaban, but you're probably right. Let me see. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry, guys. I'm under the weather right now, and I do apologize. Summer colds suck. So let's see. Kevin Herget has been recalled from AAA, so he's part of the bullpen right now. So okay, that's a guy that you could possibly think is a possibility. And Braziban was put down. Is that true? He was sent down. Okay, so Braziban was sent down, and Herget was called up. Right? Yes. Kevin Herget has been recalled, and he's in the bullpen today. So he's probably going to be a long guy just in case. He's probably going to play that Braziban role, most likely. So if the crown rolling? Sure. It's not that, but I wish it was. I got to work later, so unfortunately. Let's see the comments, guys. Dwayne, possibly. I don't think for sure Kevin Herget is going to be automatically thrown into this game. I think it's a situation if you only get you need a guy that can go probably 2 innings. Worst case scenario, right? If Nolan McLean doesn't have it today and he can only pitch 4 innings, again, that's a stretch. But, guys aren't perfect. If Nolan McLean goes only 4 innings and struggles, you're going to see Kevin Herget in here and pitch 2 innings. Because you can't go to your best guys earlier in the game because you have nobody to pitch. You're going to get stuck with Stanek and Helsley as possibilities for late inning games, and nobody wants that. So, yeah, you want Nolan McLean to go 6. 7 is best case scenario. 6 is a good scenario because you do have Castillo, rarely Diaz for 7, 8, and 9. But, again, the game progresses. The game turns in different ways. It's so unpredictable. I think that's the beauty of baseball. I know people talk about baseball is like not us because we love baseball, but too many people I talk to sometimes are saying, "Oh, I don't watch baseball; it's boring." I'm like, "Yeah, because you're an idiot. Because you need to have knowledge of what's going on in the game. There's a lot going on in the game. Like everybody is in group chats, everybody is on on a chat in YouTube during a game, and everybody's thinking ahead. Hey, Nolan McLean looks like he's getting tired here. Who are you going to put in the 6th? Like, it's constant thinking. And that is what, if you're a fan that watches the game every single day for years and years and years, everybody thinks about this stuff. Who are you going to pinch hit? Are you going to do a defensive replacement? Who are you going to put in the 8th inning? What happens if this doesn't work out? There's so many scenarios in a game that fans that love baseball talk about because that's what you do every day. The people that don't understand baseball think it's boring because they just think, oh, you watch the ball, you throw the ball, you hit the ball. That's all they think. They don't think about defensive replacements. They don't think about pitch hitting, bullpen. They don't think about defensive alignment. It's all that stuff. When you watch baseball, as we all do, as we love the game, we understand there's more to it than throw the ball, hit the ball. I mean, it sounds like a stupid sport, but when you really break it all down, there's a lot going on. And, hey, we love it, unfortunately. And we picked a team that likes to give us a lot of heartache. So, once again, Nolan McLean on the mound for the New York Mets going for the sweep of the Philadelphia Phillies against Taijuan Walker, the former Met. The Mets are going for the sweep. The Mets lineup today, as they're 10 games over 500, looking to get 11 games over 500. That hasn't been the case for a while, which is nice to see. But, man, today is so goddamn important for this team. This gives them opportunities here to have another way into the playoffs, and that would be a division. Remember, we win today, we win the season series, which means we have the tiebreaker over the Phillies. So, technically, we won't be 4 games out of the division. We will be, what, guys? 3 games out of the division because of the tiebreaker. They got to have one more game in hand against us to win this division. If you win today, you got 29 games to go to possibly make that happen. But the good news is the Mets have an opportunity here. They got one of their phenom prospects in Nolan McLean, who's pitched well in his first 2 outings against the Mariners and the Braves. Now, in the biggest start of the season, and I truly believe this can be a deciding factor of what the Mets do going forward. Are they going to have a chance for a division or not? Today's game will decide that, in my opinion. You get that division lead or that division deficit back to 6, it's kind of like, damn, you kind of missed a golden opportunity there with having the tiebreaker, and you failed. And now you got to just worry about holding on to a wild card. So, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, Nimmo, Vientos, McNeil, Marte, Beatty, and Hayden Sanger. 1 through 8 looks really good. Everybody's hitting in this lineup right now. Pete Alonso looking like he's breaking out of it yesterday with the game he had yesterday. So he's starting to hit now when he struggled in the Braves series and looking a lot better in his Phillies series. So this is a deep lineup today. This is not going to be easy to navigate for Taijuan Walker, but Taijuan Walker has pitched well for the Phillies since getting put back in this rotation. We got to remind him he is not that good. And the lineup, I think, with Nolan McLean on the mound, got to get the job done, guys. This is the big boy game of the season. Every game is important, but we all know we have to. This is so important for the New York Mets today. I can't say it enough. This is the game where everybody's going to be on edge. Every pitch, every inning, every at bat, it's going to be a nail biter. And with a desperate Phillies team that knows this game probably almost, for the most part, puts the division in their back pocket if they win today. 6-game lead with 29 to play. It's not easy. It's not over, but it's not an easy task. 4 games with the tiebreaker with 29 games to go. It looks a lot nicer and a lot more obtainable with the tiebreaker for the New York Mets. So Nolan McLean, have a game, buddy. Have another game like you had against the Braves. I want to see a high strikeout performance, a great outing once again. You are a top prospect. You've been put into the fire because of David Stearns and the lack of starters, good starters that he put in this rotation. He put your feet to the fire. It's up to you now to show that you can handle it. And so far, so good. But this is the biggest game that he's pitched so far in front of 42,000 fans at Citi Field. It's going to be packed. It's going to be crazy. Brooms will be out. Boom mics are going to be out. And with that said, guys, I won't be able to do a post-game today, unfortunately. Possibly Chris is doing a post-game. I haven't spoke to him today. We've both been very busy with scheduling and work and all that fun stuff. But I do believe he's doing a post-game. So make sure you tune into the post-game later today. Guys, I hope we're talking about a pregame tomorrow where the Mets sweep the Philadelphia Phillies and we're riding high into a 4-game set at home against the Miami Marlins. With that said, guys, thank you for tuning into the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channel. If you're a new subscriber to the channel, welcome to the channel. Keep on coming back for more. Hit that like button, guys. Enjoy the game. And let's go Mets, guys. Let's beat those damn Phillies and bring the brooms out at Citi Field tonight, guys. Have a good night, and let's go Mets, guys.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite.